This is a very strange story. The White House says that for the past 8 months, a Parkinson's expert has been meeting at the White House. Now, they're saying they can't confirm the name of this expert. They've been meeting with the doctor. And there is now a rumor, speculation, concern that Biden may have Parkinson's disease. I think it's a bit, I don't know, it's a rumor. But considering the New York Times leading with the story, considering what we've all witnessed with Biden's health, his strange gait, which it could be what they refer to as Parkinson's gait, perhaps it's something as simple as Biden is exhibiting symptoms, which may be Parkinson's, so they've been calling in this doctor. I don't know why they'd be calling this doctor 8 times in 8 months unless they found something. So this is really interesting. Along with this story, Democrats have increased their calls for Joe Biden to resign, and he is refusing. He sent out a letter saying he's not going to do it. He said, I am the nominee. And Batia Ungar-Sargon with this amazing point saying, we are at the staging a coup against your duly elected nominee part of saving democracy now. It's a fair point. Joe Biden won the primary. The idea that they're going to replace him now is undermining every position they've tried to maintain over the past several years regarding Trump. We're going to talk about that plus the polling. However, before we do, my friends, head over to vaultdrinks.com or go to vaultdrinks.com/TimPool and you will save 10% on Vault Energy. I'm a big fan, guys. You know, I was doing I was in ketosis for a while, the ketogenic diet. This Vault Energy drinks got no sugar, no caffeine. They're awesome. We met them a while back and they hooked us up with these and they're very good. I don't even know how to describe it. It's so delicious. It's almost like drinking candy, I got to tell you. But it's brain fuel. It's brain fuel. They say Vault is the first ever Go BHB ketone high octane brain fuel that supercharges your mind and body, contains no sugar, no caffeine, nothing artificial. You got to be your best, speed up your brain activity, boost your memory, reaction time, focus, and sharpness while reducing stress and balancing your mood. Again, no caffeine, no sugar, no jitters, no crash, just pure brain power with Go BHB ketones. Vault isn't just for mental clarity. It also enhances, they say, physical energy and stamina. They say it aids in faster recovery, hydrates and restores electrolytes, and promotes a good night's sleep. Yo, we got this right here, this QR code you can scan right now if you want to get more information. And I got to be honest, they sent us a bunch of these. They're gone already. So I'm a big fan. This stuff's right up my alley because, I try to limit caffeine myself. And this works really well when we're out skating the park and everything. So I recommend you check it out. Shout out to the Vault crew. We really do appreciate your support. Also, don't forget, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. And in 10 days at the RNC in Milwaukee, we have a live show. July 18th with Mike Lindell, Luke Rudkowski, Hannah Claire Brimelow, Libby Emmons. If you want to come buy your tickets now, we hope to see you there. It is going to be a blast at the RNC. We'll be there all week. We're going to have a bunch of amazing guests throughout the week. We will not be going to the DNC because, to be honest, I've grown quite fond of living. And I don't intend to be at whatever that's going to be. Not interested. Milwaukee is dangerous enough. I mean, it's a fine city. Chicago's fine. I really don't think anything's going to happen. But, I don't see massive protests happening at the RNC. I just don't. But the Democrats are going to have probably massive protests. And, over the weekend, the big breaking news is 19 died in Chicago over the 4th. It happens all the time. So we won't be there. But become a member by clicking join us. We're going to have that members only uncensored show coming up for you tonight where you as members can actually call into the show. So I recommend you sign up now, submit your questions. You got to sign up at the $10 a month level for at least 6 months or the $25 a month right now. We do that because we are gatekeeping. We don't want the weirdos coming in and disrupting everything. So we have either a time gate or a money gate. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Nick Searcy.
Nice to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, who are you? What do you do?
I'm an actor. I mean, people with good taste know who I am. I've got
That's true.
I've got a book out now called Justify This. Justified was the show that most people know me from. And I've also got a documentary about January 6th called The War on Truth. Just came out about 3 weeks ago. And I'm got a movie coming out in August called Reagan, where I play Secretary of State James Baker. Dennis Quaid plays Reagan.
Wow.
And there's a Netflix series called The Perfect Couple with Nicole Kidman and Liev Schreiber and me Nick Searcy. It'll be on Netflix sometime in September.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. Phil's hanging out.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. How you doing, Hannah Claire?
I'm good. I feel like I'm the least creative person in this room right now. Actor, musicians. Tim's all sorts of creative, too. Last time you were here, Nick, you were wearing a quilted jacket that your daughter made, and
Yep.
it just clicked to me that it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm Hannah Claire Bremlett. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. I'm excited to be back. Hi, Kellen.
Hi, I'm back. For you guys that don't know me, I'm Kellen. I'll fill in with when Surge is out. So I'm here pressing the buttons. Let's get started.
Just real quick, this weekend, went to visit family in Utah, and I got to check out the World Series of Poker. So shout out to all those players. There was about 9,000 some odd 100 players. Really exciting to check it out. You know, I'm a big fan. But let's jump into that news. From the New York Times. Parkinson's expert visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. The White House said President Biden had met with a neurologist only 3 times in more than 3 years in office, but it would not say whether the visiting expert was consulting with the president's physician about his health. They go on to say, an expert on Parkinson's disease from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center visited the White House 8 times in 8 months from last summer through this spring, including at least once for a meeting with President Biden's physician, according to official logs. The expert, Dr. Kevin Kennard, is a neurologist who specializes, is it Kennard? Kennard sounds offensive, who specializes in the movement disorders and recently published a paper on Parkinson's. The logs released by the White House document visits from July 2023 through March of this year. More recent visits, if there have been any, would not have been released until later under the White House voluntary disclosure policy. It was unclear whether Dr. Kennard was at the White House to consult specifically about the president or was there for unrelated meetings. Dr. Kennard's LinkedIn page describes him as supporting the White House medical unit for more than 12 years. His biography on Doximity, a website for health professionals, lists him as a neurology consultant to the White House medical unit and the physician to the president from 2012 to 22, which would include the administrations of Barack Obama and Trump. Records from the Obama administration when Mr. Biden was vice president show that he made at least 10 visits in 2012, plus a family tour, 4 in 13, 1 in 2014, 4 in 2015, and 8 in 2016. Mr. Trump rescinded Mr. Obama's voluntary White House visitor disclosures policy, so records are not available for his 4 years in office. Okay, so I want to say right now, I don't know that we know anything about whether Biden does or does not have Parkinson's. The trending rumor going around right now, because of this story, is that Biden may be experiencing symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Many people think he may actually have Parkinson's. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I pulled up signs and symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and postural instability and rigidity are symptoms, mood and behavior issues. And I think they mentioned like the hands. Look, I mean,
Polio hands.
yeah, I was mentioning this earlier when I was talking about how Democrats are calling on Biden to resign, how when you see him walk, his hands are like this, like he's having motor control issues. I thought that's a potential sign of dementia or, decreased cognitive function. Now we're hearing from the New York Times that this Parkinson's expert met monthly for 8 months. I don't know what to say, man, because look, Joe Biden clearly is suffering. Something's wrong. We don't know what it is. The media is going to lie to us and force us to speculate. And the other issue is perhaps it's irresponsible to say a doctor who's visited the White House a ton of times over the past 10 years is doing it now. And it's like, okay, well, monthly does bring up some issues. Fair point. But maybe this is, I got to be honest, the Democrats staging a coup against Joe Biden and tainting the media against him. Now, as you guys know, I've been the biggest Joe Biden supporter the entire time. He is our candidate. We're all Democrats who want him to keep running.
Yes.
And they're trying to find a way to remove him. So
Timcast IRL is firmly riding with Biden.
We've been riding with Biden.
We believe in him. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's obvious that something's going on with Joe Biden. One of the things that concerns me is you're totally right. If this doctor has been to the White House a number of times before, he's toured it with his family, whatever. He obviously has some kind of inside relationship there. What bothers me more is that we do not know who Joe Biden hangs out with every weekend that he spends at his home in Delaware, right? Anytime he goes to Camp David, those visitor logs are private. So what is to say, maybe this Parkinson's expert is visiting the White House a somewhat normal amount of time for him. But he's every single weekend in Delaware. We just don't know.
Maybe this Dr. Kevin Kennard he hangs out with Biden for a poker game with the boys.
Yeah.
And he's just coming by the White House for the monthly poker game with the boys.
They just got invited to 8 months ago after some hiatus.
Yeah, they're friends.
I mean, I think Joe Biden's not a quitter. I think that it's good. I think he's fine. I don't know why everybody thinks there's something wrong with him. I want him to stay right where he is. He's right where we need him to be.
Yeah.
If Joe Biden stays, I'll win $100 because I bet someone that he was going to stay. I don't think I'm going to win $100.
I think you're going to win $100.
I think that he's going to get out of there. But even like the memeing aside, you still have a man in the White House, is supposedly the commander in chief of the military, that is incapable of performing the job. He's surrounded by people that have neglected their duty to inform the American people what's going on, that he cannot do this. Like, it is clear. Now, they've beclowned themselves by making the argument that, oh, no, for ages, for years now, they've been making the argument. No, he's fine. Joe Scarborough, he's sharp as a tack. You clown. You absolute buffoon. He's sharp as a tack. You're an embarrassment. And the fact that the Democrat Party for so long said, oh, no, he's fine. The biggest lie that has been told the entire campaign season, people will talk about Donald Trump, he lies about this, he lies about that, he exaggerates, blah, blah, blah. The biggest lie that's been told the entire campaign season is that Joe Biden is competent and capable of being the commander-in-chief of the military. And this lie is not only the biggest, it's the most consequential and the one that puts the United States in the most danger, because he is not.
I want to just give a quick shout out if we can pull this article up. It is 2024, and I'm imagining that there's a lot of Gen Z young people who are in politics right now, perhaps watching this show. And if they're not, you should share this with them, because they weren't following the news 4 years ago. And it's kind of crazy that I think a lot of older people don't recognize this right away, that like, hey, dude, look, there's a 20-year-old who 4 years ago was listening to rock music, hang out with their friends. They were not in politics. And now they're sitting here being like, this is going to be my first presidential election, and I'm paying attention to what's going on. The Atlantic has an article from 2020, Stay Alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little from the frontrunner beyond his corporeal presence. 4 years ago. So when they come out and they say to you, the media covered this up, we had no idea Joe Biden was in such decline, lies. Because 4 years ago, they wrote this in the Atlantic because this is March of 2020. They knew Biden was in terrible shape and was on the verge of death. That's how they framed this. And now 4 years later, they're going, oh, who could have guessed?
And I want to point out, like, the person that wrote this, Alex Wagner, she's a propagandist from MSNBC and has been forever. They're all in on it because they want the prestige of being close to the president and to the office. They're all bad. There's not a good one among them.
I want to point out what I think may be going on with Biden and this Parkinson's expert. He's a neurology expert. I think people are tacking on the Parkinson's thing because that's maybe he just published a paper on it. Here's what I think is very, very simple. When you look at the cardinal signs, you can see postural instability, rigidity. Watch the video of Trump leaving the stage during the debate. He calmly walks off, nothing happens. Then watch Joe Biden. Jill holds his hand as he struggles to walk down 2 steps. And you'll notice, we were talking about this last week when we were leaving. I was asking some of the guys, I can't remember who was here, but I was just like, why did Biden do that weird thing where he turns to his side and then lets one leg down instead of just walking down the stairs? He's suffering from rigidity. It's hard. So he turns sideways and then puts one straight leg on the stairs and then turns to get down instead of bending his legs and hips like a younger, healthier person would do. I'm wondering if, because of these signs, they bring a doctor to check on him and see if he is suffering from something related to Parkinson's. Not that he is. I think the most reasonable approach is the doctor is checking up on him to make sure it's not.
Yeah.
It may be, but it's like, okay, we're going to come back next month and see if this is improved or not. They come back next month. Okay, here's what's going on now. So we don't know if there's a diagnosis, but I think it's fair to say we all see it. The media is now claiming to see it. I think it's fair to say that we are seeing signs that may be Parkinson's, but I must stress they could be a million other things as well.
Yeah, there's obviously something wrong with him. So, they're checking him out as often as they think necessary. But the real thing to me is that, I don't think Biden has been in charge from the beginning. I don't think he's running anything. I don't think he's capable of running anything. And the people who put him there knew that.
I think he is.
I don't think he. I think he's being told what to do.
I think at some point there was a shift, but I do think in the beginning he very much was. He, like most presidents, probably relies on deep state assets. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek when I say that. His advisors, his intelligence officers, to instruct him on what they think is the best move, and then he agrees with it. I think if you look at Afghanistan, I think Afghanistan happened. If there really was someone else in charge, if it was Obama, if it was the CIA, Afghanistan would not have gone down the way it did. Unless I can't do this because it's a bit too circuitous to imply that the botched Afghanistan withdrawal was intentionally done, because now you're making a bit too many assumptions. I think what happens is Joe Biden is at a stage in his decline where he's sitting in a situation room and he's like, you gotta get him out of the airport, you get him on a plane, and then they're like, sir, what do you mean? Just get him out, get him, and they're like, whatever. And I think his cabinet, they're all looking at each other going like, okay. And then they just do these random things without plan or strategy. I think it's because of things like that, you end up with other people being like, we're going to take the lead on this.
Yeah.
I think where we're at now, though, is Jill Biden being like, she's like Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So anybody who tries to go to Biden, she's like, and in his ears. So I think the disarray and the chaos and the failure shows that Biden is in some semblance in charge, but it's being exploited by people who clearly show that he can see that he has no strength to push back.
I think that there's there's always been a problem here, which is that Joe Biden was not in great shape going into 2020, but he was better. And I think there was a relationship between him and his advisors and the structure around him that was like, either some people felt like they were going to be there and they believed in Joe Biden and there's a semblance of authenticity to his leadership, or they thought he will be malleable enough, we'll be able to get our way. And it has exposed this really intense internal tension where, as he has maybe continued to decline physically, he's also still not willing to give up power. And internally, there are people who are like, no, Joe Biden is in charge. And there are other people who are like, stop, just let me do what I want. I mean, even with, there were similar criticisms of Trump's administration that he was staffed poorly, that he didn't have people in places that were giving him good advice when he needed it. And I think with Biden, you're maybe seeing something similar where, if I'm remembering correctly, he suddenly announced that he wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan by September 11th to have this sort of symbolic victory, right? But that's not strategic. He just decided this is what they were going to do. And I assume he was not the only one in the room when they were having this conversation. And so again, it's sort of bad advice putting sort of public PR display. And I think that's really what's a lot of his campaign or a lot of his administration is just people who are like, how can we make him look as good as possible? Putting that before strategic military operations.
I want to jump to what I think may be my favorite story so far this year, my favorite. This is a post from Libs of TikTok. It's a clip from The View. Whoopi Goldberg says she would still vote for Biden even if he poops his pants and can't put a sentence together because she also has poopy days.
Well, okay. Who doesn't?
Right. So as the meme goes, first they say it's not happening. Then they say, well, so what if it is happening? Then they say, you know what? Even if it was happening, it'd be a good thing. Then they say, of course it's happening.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the border invasion. There's no invasion at the border. Then they're like, so what? Who cares if there's an invasion? Then they said, even if these people were coming, it's good because it's cultural enrichment. Now they're like, our border's being invaded a year later. Now, I also want to stress, in the previous segment, we were discussing symptoms of Parkinson's that Biden may be exhibiting. And of course, the Biden pooping his pants story was this weird. He was like bending over and back and forth. We don't know exactly what Biden was doing on D-Day when he was crouching down and moving back and forth like that. We all immediately thought, and it's true, a lot of people thought he was having a boom. He was making an accident.
Right.
There on stage. Now Whoopi Goldberg is saying she doesn't care even if he did. We're at that point in the news cycle. But I will stress, it may actually have been his postural collapse from Parkinson's, which may make more sense. And, it's funny because when we say he may have pooped his pants, the left loses it. How dare you imply that? I mean, it's possible. And I will stress this every time before we play this clip. There is more evidence Joe Biden pooped his pants than there is the Hunter Biden laptop is part of a Russian disinformation scheme. That's true. Let's play the clip from Whoopi Goldberg. Here we go.
On the day that y'all talked about it, I don't care if he's pooped his pants. I don't care if he can't put a sentence together. Show me he can't do the job, and then I'll say, okay, maybe it's time to go. Now, he had a bad night the first time that he went out and debated with Kamala Harris. And everybody wanted him to quit then and say, you can't talk to women like this, or you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. He came back, said, you know what, I got it, and gave 4 years. So, yeah, I have poopy days all the time.
Wow, all the time.
I step in so much poo you can't even imagine.
What?
Now, I'm not
Elegant,
running the
classy
world,
lady.
but I don't know anybody who doesn't step in stuff at some point. So I'm just simply saying, there are 2 debates. And if he can't do what he needs to do for the second debate, I'll join any crew that says get rid of him. But loyalty to me, if you are doing the job, I might not like everything you're doing.
I just want to pause real quick. Show of hands, how many people do you know that have poopy days all the time and step in it? No hands?
Nobody.
I know one.
One guy?
Yeah.
Joe Biden?
No, but somebody about his age.
Yeah, and the other question is, she said she has poopy days all the time.
Well, that's a real
Wow.
soldier right there. That's, I mean, you know. This
She's
is
on
like,
The View. Who knows what's going on?
pooping your pants is fine. I do it all the time. I'm voting Biden. I mean, you can't ask for more loyalty than that.
To be fair, the reason why she may be taking it so personally is that when he was accused of pooping his pants, she poops her pants all the time. She's like, hey, that's not fair. Like, you're discriminating against people with fecal incontinence.
I'm just waiting for the ableist crowd to be like, you are being discriminatory towards him.
Yes.
It's coming.
The sphincterly challenge.
I believe we will get to that point where they're going to say you're attacking Joe for a disability. It's not affecting his ability to do his job. It was an accident. But we are. I can't believe we got to the point where it's the so what if he pooped his pants? We all do it phase.
Well, they might turn it around and go, well, it shows that he's healthy. You know, he had a good bowel movement. You know, that's a good day for him.
I think that may be the next step because, of course, they're supposed to do, you know, if it is happening, it's a good thing. And so the question then is, well, you're saying that he's unhealthy, but he's having clean bowel movements, like he's clearly in functioning order. That's right.
I mean, I think that it's also ridiculous because no matter what happened on D-Day, like whether, I know some people think like there was a chair behind him, he was going to sit down, he got confused, whatever happened, like he left the stage early. And that is a big implication on his ability to do this job, right? You're at something honoring fallen soldiers in this historic moment, and you have to leave the stage early, right? This is something that we see from Biden all the time. Even the George Stephanopoulos interview that came out over the weekend. I mean, it's only 32 minutes long. That's not that much time.
Part of the job is looking strong, looking like you can do the job, looking like you are able to perform these sort of functions that are basically, formalities.
Right.
And if you can't do that, then
If you're wandering off stage, if you're falling down at every graduation, I mean, it's really not giving the confidence that I think American people need. Because that's what's stunning about the Democrats saying, we only need your corporeal form, which is saying, we don't care about this office, we care about who controls every other bureaucratic administration, which is, them being honest. I think that's true. But the American voters needed someone to rally around, someone who calms their fears at times of crisis, and it's just not Joe Biden.
I just did a quick Google search, fairly obvious, but Parkinson's can cause incontinence, both urinary and fecal.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just saying, when this all went down on D-Day, the media's immediate reaction was the right is lying and they're making it up. And I'm like, we all saw this weird bending over weird thing he was doing. He's been accused of it before. But because of the nature of it, there's this reaction from even people on the right to dismiss it like, oh, you're just insulting the man. You're accusing him. There are people who are claiming he was trying to put papers on the ground. And I'm like, look, man, you pick. Was he struggling to sit down? Did he forget he was supposed to stand? Did he accidentally, was he unable to bend over to put papers on the ground? You pick which one it is. They're all bad. One is perhaps more...
Humiliating?
Yes, lacking dignity, but
I mean, this is all like, I mean, to me, it's funny to meme on this stuff, but at the end of the day, I still can't get past the fact that this is a national security threat, right? Like, you've got 2 wars going on in the world that are significant conflicts. You've got Israel and you've got Ukraine, and you've got in Israel, there's a significant chance that it expands with Iran or with Hezbollah getting involved, which is essentially Iran as well. These are real threats. Like, granted, it's not likely that any of these will come back to the U.S. homeland. It's possible there could be terrorist threats because of all of the wonderful job that the Biden administration has done at the southern border. But at the same time, you can't tell. You can never tell what is going to happen with war. Once a conflict actually goes kinetic and you've got people shooting at each other and stuff, there's a real possibility for expanding the war into any number of ways. And with the moves that NATO's been making with bringing in Finland and talking about Ukraine and stuff, it is just not at all acceptable to have a man that is completely and totally incompetent running the United States military. And that's not even talking about Taiwan. And people that are talking about, there are Democrats that are still like, oh, it's important that we solidify and we get behind Joe. Whether or not Joe Biden wins or Kamala Harris wins, if it were a situation where the Democrat wins, you know that China and Iran and Russia are going to look and say, now's the time for us to do things that the United States wouldn't like.
Right.
I can't say what their plans would be, but the idea that the United States exists in a vacuum, and that what happens in the United States and what happens with our government and the commander in chief, the idea that doesn't affect the other countries of the world, that's ridiculous.
It affects them hugely. I mean, I think part of the reality is if you're Evan Gershowitz's parents, or if you're Paul Whelan's family, or if you're Mark Fogel, these are all Americans who are currently detained in Russia. Do you think Joe Biden is going to get them back? No. And I realize you could say, oh, well, they have the special envoys who are in charge. No. Ultimately, leadership in any other country responds to the head of the leadership of your country. And I just think that Joe Biden is not doing anyone any favors. In fact, I think if you're someone who's in desperate need of the federal government to intervene on your behalf, again, like Gershwitz, Paul Whelan, and Mark Fogel, if you need them to negotiate the release of your family member, this is not the government that you want in charge.
Yeah. It's clearly not the government that you want in charge. And again,
no, but what about all the people who watch The View? No, I mean, for real, there's millions of people who watch it, and I assume their demographic is predominantly like suburban women, urban. I don't think
Waffles.
I don't know that it's your average millennial woman in New York watching The View. I think it's probably late 40s, but I mean, they're now sitting there nodding their head along to a woman who has publicly admitted she suffers from fecal incontinence as an effort to help Joe Biden get more votes.
I mean, but also this person is not that inspirational to a lot of voters, right? There will be women in the suburbs who are watching this being like, some of them will laugh at her and be like, oh, crazy whoopee. But a lot of them will be like, you're kind of gross and weird. And I don't know that I like your opinions on anything. I mean, she is taking an interesting stand for sure. I'll give her that. But I don't think it's the encouraging win for Joe Biden that she thinks it is.
Just imagining now, if you ever encounter like some older millennial or, Gen X woman who's like, well, look, I agree with Whoopi. Like, we all have poopy days. You can just be like, yeah, you have poopy days too, right? Just like Joe Biden, you do too. That's what Whoopi said, huh?
Well, she's also kind of half-hearted in this. She's saying, look, I have this issue too, but if he doesn't do well in the next debate, then I'm going to leave him behind. The next debate is September. I mean, she's saying that she's going to bail out of this ship if he doesn't get better in the next couple months. Has Joe Biden seemed to been improving to anyone else in this room? I mean, he's been out there more. They've had him on, doing interviews or whatever else, and it just doesn't seem like this is really there. No one is turning this ship around.
The comeback interview with Stephanopoulos was a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked terrible. He did.
Do you think he got a spray tan?
Of course he did.
Absolutely.
Didn't it look like he got a very intense spray tan to try?
Who's the orange man now?
I know.
He should have gotten the hair too. He should have.
I have a meme where he looks
go
great.
all the way.
Well, people
man.
will do that because it's like, oh, it makes he looks healthy or whatever. It's like, oh no, Joe Biden's team.
He did the orange man thing, right? He's the orange man now, and he called into Morning Joe. He's literally taking on all of Biden's stuff, all of
Trump's things. He is mirroring his health after him. But he also did those interviews where the radio host was like, oh, yes, I only asked questions prepared by his campaign. And he still was like, I am the first black woman to serve with a black president. Like, it was so crazy. He
and when he's
couldn't
doing
even when they teed it up for him as a softball. Go ahead.
When he's doing those phone things, he's got papers in front of him. I read some article where people were calling in saying they could hear the papers as he was talking. He's reading. Mm-hmm. And so, when you see him try to talk without a teleprompter, or when he's being asked questions that he doesn't see coming, or even when he sees them coming, he can't put together a sentence.
Let's jump to this. No, go ahead. I'm going to move on. So if you want to nail last.
Well, the only thing I'm saying is if you look at Joe Biden, like video of him now and 6 months ago and 6 months previous to that, if you look at you can see a significant decline every 6 months.
Someone should do a
extreme
time lapse.
notable.
Yeah.
Like, they do those photos every day thing. Just like every public appearance of Joe Biden, put it in a sequence and watch him. Like,
There's been like 6.
Yeah, he's to me.
it'll be quick.
Yeah, it's like once a year you get the guy out of the crypt.
Let's jump to the story. This is The Guardian. The Democrats who have called on Joe Biden to step down, the big news was that on a phone call with top leadership in the House, they're saying Joe Biden needs to quit because if he's on the ballot, they all lose. So you got a big list. You got Lloyd Doggett, Rahul Grijalva, Seth Moulton, Mike Quigley, Annie Craig, Adam Smith, Jerry Nadler, Mark Takano, Joe Morrell. There's more. Biden ends up writing a letter to all of them basically saying, I will not step down. So to shout out Batya Ungar Sargon, we are in the staging a coup against the duly elected nominee stage of, quote, saving democracy.
But remember, it's okay when they stage coups. It's cool if they do it. I find this fascinating, especially Angie Kane of Minnesota, because Minnesota is supposed to be a state that Biden needs coming into this election. So the fact that there's all kinds of issues there already. I mean, you had I don't remember what the term was, but basically all the people in the primary who were like, we don't like Joe Biden because of the Israel-Palestine conflict, so we're going to vote basically no confidence. We want someone else. I mean, to have states that he really wants to win starting to say we don't think we don't think you're the one on multiple angles, not just the age, on some of his foreign policy issues, is significant. So
in this letter he writes, he says, we had a democratic nomination process and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. And he goes on to say, do we now just say this process doesn't matter? That the voters don't have any say, et cetera, et cetera. If I was a Democrat calling I'm going to resign, I have one response to this letter. Joe, deliver the speech in person.
Yeah.
And then I will accept your answer. I'm not going to read a letter that was written by a staffer or Jill.
Why couldn't he go into the White House press briefing room today and just address this, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Why couldn't he?
I don't know, because it seems like he is really willing to communicate and he believes in his ability for the future. So I don't understand why he didn't just do it. I mean, I guess he had a really busy schedule being followed around by Vice President Kamala Harris.
I'm not. Look, if Democrats are still willing to play this game, by all means, they can do whatever game they want. We have all known since 2020 and before, Joe Biden is not with it, and he is only getting worse. In 2020, we were talking about sundowning. We were like, this guy is sundowning. It gets late. He loses his cognitive capabilities. I mean, everybody gets tired, but sundowning is a serious thing. That was in 2020. And we knew it was going to be an exponential decline. The idea that Joe wrote this letter is laughable. A staffer wrote it and sent it out.
Or Jill. Because if it was Trump would do a rally and talk for 4 hours with ad-libbing with no prompter, telling jokes half the time. Yeah. Joe Biden disappears. We played the game in 2020 when Biden was campaigning from his basement and calling a lid on all of the press events. There's no press event. You can't talk to him. Who is going to fall for this now? Yeah. I mean, I can't believe people fell for it in the first place, but here we are. Well, the great thing to me is it's so much fun to watch because the Democrats created this monster. They put him in office. They got him there. They knew who he was. They knew he was compromised. And now he doesn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. And they can't get him out because he's president. So it's going to be fun to see how they do it.
When he was posturing, when he was campaigning, like as if he was going to be a one-term president and he was going to usher in the new generation of leadership, which presumably would be female and, a person of color.
Kamala, yeah.
Kamala or someone, I really think that there was this conversation with the leadership of the Democrat Party and the Biden campaign where it was like, I'm just going to do it for 4 years and then I'll leave. No worries. And then as soon as he got in office, he was like, I'm staying for as long as I can.
I like it here. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm loving this, right? So AOC came out saying that she's standing with Joe Biden. She spoke to him extensively. He's the nominee. Trump is up massively. According to their internal polling, Trump's up like 10 points in some swing states. Mm-hmm. If we look at the actual polling right now, 538's got Trump in aggregate up 2.4. All of the latest polls have Trump absolutely above. 2 points, 5 points. If they swap Biden out with Harris, Trump's up 11. Trump v. Biden, when you include Kennedy, West, Stein, and others, he's up 6. Against Pritzker, he's up 8. Against any others, he is massively up. Pritzker, 8 points. Whitmer, 6 points. Beshear, 6 points. Newsom, 4 points. However, the polls all show, there's a couple polls, Michelle Obama crushes Trump by the double digits. I don't believe that for a second.
I don't believe that.
Yeah,
either.
I don't. I believe she's their best option. I do, but I don't think she actually... I think she's their best option. She'd do better than Biden, but she'd still have a rough go of it.
She's not a campaigner. I mean, how would she run a campaign? She's never held office. It's a ridiculous pipe dream. It's like running Oprah.
But see,
I don't think she has those political ambitions.
But I don't know if that matters, because that's just a rumor that people have speculated on, that she doesn't want to do it. I don't know what that means. I'll tell you this. What Democrats know for sure, and their reluctance to run Michelle, has a lot to do with Democrats being racist. I'm not being cute. Republicans keep playing this game where they're like, oh, but for political reason, she couldn't do it. Or for political reason, she would do it. And I'm like, you see, Republicans are showing your true colors. They're not assuming race will play a role, because Republicans don't consider that a factor when determining whether or not they would vote for a candidate. That's why 9 million Obama voters switched for Trump. They voted for Obama twice. It wasn't a big deal. He was a black man. But Democrats, many of them, as we know from that Yale study, they present themselves as less competent when talking with black people. And what did Barack Obama do with Joe Biden the first time? Why did they add Joe Biden to his ticket? Because they were concerned that Democrats would not vote for Barack Obama. And so they needed an old white guy. That was why they chose Joe Biden. Why did Kamala Harris join the ticket? Nobody voted for Kamala Harris. She couldn't even get a single delegate. They voted for Joe Biden. After everything, Biden has been the guy in the White House they've been using. I think if it's Michelle Obama and Harris, people underestimate there's going to be a lot of uppity suburban Democrats who are like, I respect it, but I won't vote for it.
Mm-hmm. There's the without trying to do the Democrats are the real racist kind of thing. One of the arguments that was being made consistently by people on the right when it came to CRT, when people were first learning about that phrase, critical race theory, and what it means. And we talked about this and we said this kind of stuff on the show, but critical race theory, the whole point of it is to awaken a critical race consciousness, which means make people more aware of their race. For the most part, white people in the United States had not really thought about being white. It was just kind of the way that, the way they were. And so the goal of the left was to awaken make people cognizant of the fact that they're of whatever their race is. The white people that have noticed, they're not just going to be like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to feel bad. And the fact that this is what the Democrats want, they've literally made America a more racist place. Yeah. Because if you're thinking about race and you're focusing on race, you can't help but end up being racist. Even if it's unintentionally racist, like I think there are a lot of Democrats that don't realize when they're being condescending or when they're changing the way they speak when they talk to a different race. Like, that's racist. When you're thinking about race, it makes people more racist. So congratulations, Democrats. This is what CRT provides. This is what CRT does to a society. Nothing good. It makes people more racist. You talk about DEI and Kamala Harris being a DEI candidate. That is a blatantly obvious thing. And it's because the left desires this. The left wants people to think about race. I personally liked it better when we were trying to have a less racist society, when we were doing the liberal thing, trying to focus on the individual as opposed to the race or the color of their skin. But Democrats didn't want that because they thought being racist was a vector or a way to access power. And maybe it is. But if you think that there aren't going to be people that are going to push back, you're wrong. That's just not the way that it's going to be. And it's going to make America worse because of it.
Yeah, I think there's a level of becoming so obsessed with race backfired because it was supposed to be about guilt and shame, right? It was supposed to be, I'll make certain groups feel bad so that they won't stand in my way and or will, support me as someone who deserves more than I feel as though I have gotten. And I think that doesn't last for as long as maybe they thought it would. And it's also not as honorable as they maybe presented out to be. I think people who do feel like there are issues in the country or whatever else don't feel like that model of pitting people against each other has actually gained anything for them.
Yeah, particularly for young men. Like if you're talking about there's probably more racist young men now because they're, they don't care. Essentially, you've got young white guys that are like, well, all I get told is I'm the bad guy and I've got all these problems and all the things that I want to do make me bad and I'm blah, blah, blah. So why shouldn't I just go ahead and be like, F you and check out of society? And
I think it's more than just white men, though. I think it's also, young children who grow up in enclosed communities saying every community out around us is out to get you because of the color of your skin, and you need to judge this person because if they're white, they hate you. If they're whatever, it's intensifying any kind of fear of other instead of being unifying or whatever they said.
But this is a point that Jordan Peterson made. There's going to be a certain group or a certain percentage of people that are going to say, well, if this is the world that we live in, then I'm going to play to win. I don't see why I have to not play to win. I don't see why. I haven't done anything wrong personally, so I don't see why I have to just lay down and take it and accept the fact that you're going to call me names and accept the fact that there are people that are going to say I can't get a job just because of the color of my skin and accept the fact that there are all kinds of things. And there are going to be people that are going to be like, F you.
That's intentional. That's what the left wants to do. They need more racism because their whole goal is to say, we're going to protect you from that evil race over there, because they're really racist and we're the guys that are going to stand between you and them. And if they don't have enough, they have to create more. That's what CRT is all about.
Fearful and compliant.
Bring us more racism.
But when you have a cohesive culture and society and people agree to the rules and they live by those rules, everything seems to be fine, and you don't need to live in this reality where you're like, I will burn down my neighbor for power. But now we're in a fractured multicultural society where you have competing interests and some groups that don't believe in free speech, they don't believe in the Constitution, and it's getting bigger. When I spoke with Stephen Marsh, who he wrote several books, he recently wrote a novel with Andrew Yang called The Last Election. He says he's a multicultural democracy guy. And he says that in this country, you've got a multicultural democracy and a constitutional republic, and they're at odds with each other. And he's correct. These multicultural democracy people live in a world where rights don't matter. All that matters is the whim of the mass at the moment. They are not going to want to live in the world that you live in, where you're like, we have enshrined rights and we live by these rules. So what we're facing now is where I would say something like, I believe in free speech, that means free speech for everybody, even the ideas I disagree with. We are now in wartime, cultural wartime. And you cannot live in a reality where you say, I believe everyone's deserving of free speech. No, now it's everyone who agrees with free speech shall have their free speech protected. And those who seek to dismantle and destroy it will not have that right respected. This is the difference. Where in American society where we're all like, no, we agree with free speech. There's no need to tell someone, I don't support your free speech because we all agree. But now we're up against people who think they can utilize our principles and morals and our structures and systems against us to cause us harm and damage. And that means we now have to play to win. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people who say things like, this is what this 10 years ago on social media. I remember these battles. Oh, this leftist got banned on X. It was Twitter at the time. And we would all come out and say, that's not cool. Unban them. Even though they've advocated for us to be banned, we believe in free speech. Not anymore. It's cultural wartime. Now I laugh and say, good, ban the rest of them. Anybody who thinks we shouldn't have free speech, ban them all. They live by the sword. This is what they get.
This is something that I've mentioned before. Because of the philosophy that is behind liberalism and behind things like socialism and authoritarianism, you can't have a liberalism that is not going to defend itself. If a liberal or liberalism, if a liberal is engaging in an argument with someone that's an authoritarian, the authoritarian or specifically socialist nowadays, they don't feel any compulsion to be honest because they don't believe in honest exchange. They believe that words are only useful to access power, that the reason that you have dialogue is to acquire power or to embarrass your opponent. They don't believe that you can come to an argument and have an honest and open dialogue. So there's no point in arguing with them. There's no point in treating them like a liberal. We need liberals to understand that it is okay to treat people that are not liberals the way that they would treat you. If you're dealing with liberals, sure, free speech, yes. If you're dealing with liberals, sure, it's good to have honest discussion and honest debate. But if you're dealing with someone that's not a liberal, if they're only using words to manipulate and as a means to acquire power, then you, as a liberal, are well within your rights to engage in a way that will beat them. Because winning is the only thing that matters when you're dealing with people that are only concerned with power. And the left is only concerned with power. They don't believe in any of the things that they say. When they try to make conservatives or whatever live up to the principles that the conservatives have, tell them to F off. You don't have to play their games. It is about winning. When you're dealing with liberals, you're dealing with normal people that are considered what you would consider a normal Democrat from back in the day, or conservatives or whatever. Then you can say, okay, it's good to go ahead and have an honest and open discussion, and we can disagree and blah, blah, blah. If you're dealing with authoritarians, if you're dealing with postmodernists, if you're dealing with people that don't ascribe to Enlightenment philosophy, it doesn't matter what they say. However you can beat them, beat them.
Nick, I wonder what your experience with the Democratic Party has been like, because you're from Kentucky and it has one of the only Democratic governors in that area, right?
Well, I'm from North Carolina. I
okay.
just recently moved to Kentucky.
Okay, but I mean, I feel like the Democratic Party has changed a lot in the last 10 years, definitely since the early 2000s, and some of that is the philosophical and ideological concepts that have been introduced, but some of it is just also maybe party leadership. I mean, what's your view of it?
Well, I think really everything changed. I was in Hollywood when Obama was elected, and I think that's when everything really went hard left. That's when it became like, if you don't support Obama, you're a racist, you need to shut up, you need to be silenced. That's when everybody in Hollywood kind of like knuckled down and went underground. If you were not a Democrat, if you weren't an open Democrat at that time, you had to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
I, of course, didn't. But
before that, it wasn't as bad?
It wasn't quite as bad. I mean, it was still bad during the Bush years, but when Obama got in, that's when it got ugly.
Really?
Because that's when it took a hard turn. And, speaking of free speech, there was a really interesting thing that happened this week with Gina Carano, who got run out of Disney for this innocuous tweet about how, the COVID vaccine, we're treating each other like the Nazis treated each other. Or something like that. I'm not saying it right.
Yeah.
But she lost her job, everything famously canceled, all that. She's now suing Disney. Just this past week, Mark Ruffalo put up this tweet about how you're seeing history repeat itself. After the Supreme Court decision, he put up this picture of the Nazis in Germany. And it's like Gina had a correct response to that, which is like, that's fine. It's fine if he wants to say that. But if I say that, on the other side, I have to get canceled, and Ruffalo gets to say whatever he wants. And that's how they function. It's free speech as long as we agree with it. Yeah. But if you say anything that we don't agree with, we're going to cancel you, we're going to run you out, we're going to make sure that you're not employable, and that you don't have a chance to even explain what you meant.
And this is changing. We are pushing back, and we are winning in this regard, and we're going to keep doing it, and they're going to thrash and whine as we continually tell them to shut up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's the reality of it. There's a big thing happening in skateboarding, which is, more personal to me, but I think really matters to the culture war, in that a few years ago, 3 years ago, we're building these ramps, we're building this park out in the West Virginia area, tri-state, and I get these pro skateboarders, some of the biggest in the world with big followings, messaging me saying things like, I completely agree with you. I love your show. You are correct. Things like that. And I say, hey, man, you need to say something because you're in a position of influence. For a lot of young people, you need to speak up. I'm not saying go out and scream MAGA 2020 or 2024. I'm saying just go out there and be like, if someone says something crazy, you can just say, well, I don't know about all that. That's simple. The response that I get, I can't do that. I'll lose all my sponsors. I'll lose my job. And I said, okay, well, all that is required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. And I get it. I get why some of these guys, I'm not going to name them, why they were scared to say anything. Well, something happened interestingly within the past couple of years. Something interesting has happened, and that is, while when it comes to Disney and movies and films and stuff, you are still fighting a juggernaut, the skateboard industry is not nearly as large. So when the money starts to rescind because of a bad economy, well, people aren't going out and buying new shoes and new skateboards and new gear. They're not doing as much anymore. When it comes to what am I going to buy this month, skateboards are not high up on the list, unfortunately. So a lot of these pros lost their incomes. Some of them are now famously working at department stores. They're Uber drivers. And these are guys, they never made a lot of money, but pro skateboarders maybe in the heyday were making $80K a year. Some of them making over 100, and a small handful are millionaires. Now you've got these guys who have no jobs anymore. Their sponsorships might cover a couple $100 to $1,000 a month, not nearly enough to live off of in your 30s. So now what happens is cord's been cut. No longer are they saying, I'm going to lose my job if I speak up. Now they're saying, I ain't even got a job. Now a lot of these guys are starting to speak up. Now we're starting to see a lot of these pro skateboarders get sponsored by Public Square. Public Square famously sponsoring Nitro Circus, pro skateboarders, amazing skaters like Beaver Fleming, riding for Public Square. This guy is not like one of the other guys. Beaver's awesome. He speaks up. He's very, public about what he believes, and I got massive respect for him. But a lot of these guys, they're basically saying, if I want to keep working, I now have to take sponsorship from either Public Square or Black Rifle Coffee. I got to tell you, a couple of years ago when I found out Travis Pastrana was dumping Red Bull for Black Rifle, I was like, we are winning. I mean, Travis is huge, superstar. And he's like, Black Rifle Coffee is his new sponsor, no more Red Bull. I'm like, wow, that's an amazing shift. And of course, they're losing their minds over it. The woke people don't have the ability because they don't have the money to actually sustain anyone's livelihood. So these guys who have families, they have kids, they're saying, what keeps me alive and what puts food in the belly of my son? And I'm showing up to these guys and I'm saying, yeah, we got a team of skaters. We pay them a salary. And we pay them more than most skateboarders make from any sponsorship. And they're like, you won. That's what we've needed for a long time. The ability to live, work, be creative, and actually make money. And I'm like, well, this is what we're building. Now we've got here at the Boonies HQ, big pro skateboarders talking about coming in, wanting to be involved. We're signing contracts with a bunch of these guys, and these woke losers who are trying to gatekeep and burn it all down, they have lost whatever power they had because their power only came from one thing, the threat of taking your job away. But I got news for these people. If they send me a mass email saying, hey, do you know pro skateboarder is racist, bigot, insert, I'm going to print it out because I could use a good laugh, and I'm going to show it to my friends. And this guy's not going to be at risk at all. So they have no power anymore. This is one industry where I can say we are starting to win. The scary thing is the Barracks, one of the biggest skate media industry things, shuts down. Braille skateboarding, the Barracks is shut down, but their warehouse is gone, their skate spot. And Braille skateboarding gone. Skateboarding is suffering. So I can't speak for what the Daily Wire is doing, what you guys are doing. You're fighting Hollywood, which is this big behemoth that still has massive power. But where I'm at, skateboarding collapsed already. So all I had to do was walk in with a couple bucks and be like, guys, I'm going to try and reinvest in this community and try and keep people from falling into the dark depths. And now I got these woke skateboarders losing their minds over it. They're furious, but there's no jobs to be taken. So this is how we push back in a culture war. You take opportunity where you can, defend what you love, and build what you can where you can.
Well, we make fun of Joe Biden, and it's all hilarious in a way. But, one thing we have to remember is how really evil what he's doing to the people of January 6th is. Because you talk about a free speech issue, that is exactly what that was. That was a free speech issue, and what they are doing to the January 6th people is trying to silence them. That's what this is all about, is they're punishing these people publicly in a way that sends a message that says, don't ever do this again. Don't protest anything that we do, or this is what will happen to you. And people forget about January 6th because it was over 3 years ago, but people are still being arrested today. 2 weeks ago, a guy named Tommy Tatum, who's in my movie, The War on Truth, he was arrested. He was the guy right beside Roseanne Boylan when she was beaten to death. My friend Jay Johnston, an actor in Hollywood, he pled guilty today to one count because they bled him dry. They completely ruined his life. They made him a pariah in the Hollywood community. He couldn't get a job. He lost his friends. And that's what these plea deals are about. The government marches around and say, oh, we've convicted 1,000 out of 1,400 people we've arrested, 1,000 convictions. Most of those are plea deals because they know that they can't get a fair trial in D.C. So they pile up the charges on these guys, and they have to take the plea deal just to save their own lives.
Your friend's the guy from Bob's Burgers, am I right?
Yes, yeah. Jay Johnson.
It's so interesting because this is something that a lot of Americans now know someone who has been affected this way. The fact that, we've had Brandon Strzok on the show, and he said, I took a plea deal because I didn't feel like I had any other options.
Right.
And really, with any kind of federal investigation or even state level, we could talk about stuff going on in New York. They're spending the American people's money to then put them in jail. right? I mean, I can understand where maybe there are some people on January 6th who said, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have, done something small. But they are really being treated as though they were completely, it's being escalated to a point where it's unreasonable, and they are having the full force of the American federal system go after them. What are you supposed to do? I mean, especially considering how expensive lawyers are, you just fight it until you can't anymore. And then ultimately the federal government still has money to spend on you because, by the way, you still have to pay your taxes, which they will then use to prosecute with. It's a crazy system.
One more thing, the plea deal situation, the perfect illustration of that is Simone Gold and John Strand. They walked into the White House, into the Capitol. She made a speech. The police saw them go in. They both did the exact same thing. They were in the Capitol building for about a minute and a half. John Strand refused to take the plea deal, and he went and fought it because he said, I didn't do anything wrong. Simone Gold took the plea deal. She did 30 days. John Strand went to trial. He tells me in the movie, he mounted a vigorous defense. The jury didn't care. The prosecution lied about what he did that day. Jury didn't care. He got 3.5 years. And that's what the plea deal situation is all about. That's why people take the plea deal.
Go ahead.
But the plea deal situation is a terrible thing all across the judicial system, not just concerning January 6th.
The trial tax.
Yeah, it is a way to make somebody admit to something that they didn't do.
I think the issue we have here, and shout out to John, tremendously brave and honorable thing to do, to stand up for your rights, and just tremendous bravery and tremendous respect in his direction. But I think people need to recognize we are not dealing with a cohesive culture that believes in rights in the Constitution. If you are going to a jury trial in D.C., you will go to jail.
Right.
And it is not because of some, well, you were convicted by a jury of your peers. It's because you're an enemy.
Right.
It's because you're a political enemy. Right. This is the kind of thing that we see in countries that are on the verge of collapse. Again, that is not prescriptive. I don't know what happens to the United States in the coming years, but I think it has been widely accepted by academics and journalists across the spectrum. We are in civil strife. Civil strife periods do not always lead to civil war. There, I said it. But we have talked about this quite a bit. I've been involved in copyright cases. First thing my lawyer says to me is, where can we file? You file in a blue district, you lose. You file in a red district, you win. No question. Tim Pool files a lawsuit in West Virginia over a copyright issue. That jury is going to be like, we love Tim Pool. Tim wins. You go to New York, they're going to be like, far right, he loses. It's not even about the merits anymore. Right. So every single one of these J6ers, let's take a look at the Antifa riots on January, I believe it was the 20th, 2017, at Donald Trump's inauguration, when the far left to hundreds to 1,000 or so rampaged through D.C., burning, setting vehicles on fire, starting fires in the streets, smashing up windows. What was the end result of that? Free to go with a payout. Many of these people filed a lawsuit against the federal government and won. Mm-hmm. They won money. J6ers, it didn't matter if you were. So I met a woman, her and her husband showed up several hours after the riots and everything had been breached. They were walking around D.C. and they walked up a clear and open pathway. They walked up to an open door, walked inside for a minute or two, looked around, and then left, having no idea what was going on. 18-month sentence. Because when you go to trial in D.C., you are standing before communists with one goal: to lock up a political enemy. End of story. Right. And there are too many people on the right who are like, I'm going to give my... Look, you're walking into a dragon's den to plead that he should not eat you. Mm-hmm. And I don't see why the dragons would be like, that was a great argument.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Now, and it's happened to so many people. And the thing that really we have to remember is that it's not over. Matthew Graves, who is maybe the biggest scumbag in the history of D.C., and that's saying something, he has declared that he's going to arrest 1,000 more J6ers. And they're arresting them at the rate of 5 or 6 a week. A lot of these guys that, 2.5 years go by after the first FBI visit, they think it's over. Suddenly they're arrested.
It's gross. It's because it's like badges of honor saying, look how many of those wild J6ers I locked up, but you're just wasting time and resources for your own political vendetta. And the thing is, all American taxpayers are paying for it. It's not just the people who vote Democrat. It's conservatives paying for their friends and family's conviction. I think that's gross.
And actual crime in D.C. is out of control because they're using all their resources to go after the enemies of democracy.
So let me ask this question then. Based on what we've seen with the J6ers and what we know about D.C. juries, 90+% Democrats, they don't care whether you did anything right or wrong. They care that you are a Trump supporter and they're going to lock you up. Already, Missouri's AG, Andrew Bailey, has filed a lawsuit to the Supreme Court against New York. New York is interfering in the election with an unconstitutional gag order on Trump. He argues the people of Missouri deserve to hear from the frontrunner on what he has to say. And New York is threatening him, interfering in that election. They cite other things as well. What will the Supreme Court decide? I don't know. In 2020, when Texas sued Pennsylvania for unconstitutional changes to their electoral process, the Supreme Court's general opinion was, you have no standing. You are Texas, not Pennsylvania. That's wrong. Thomas and Alito both said that's wrong. They should have taken the case. The argument is, if we are all agreeing to rules of an election in the Constitution, and one state breaks those rules to alter the outcome, it does impact the votes of other parties to this system. It should have been answered. What do you think is going to happen? I mean this both rhetorically for the audience, people want to comment, but also an actual question. When various states invariably in this election launch the lawsuits against other states and to the federal government, and we know that a New York jury is going to decide Democrat wins, federal Democrat judges, Obama appointees, and it won't fall this way 100%, but Clinton and Obama judges are going to say Democrats win. Trump and Bush judges, maybe not necessarily Bush judges, but you'll see more so saying, no, Trump wins. What happens to this country when there are challenges to the election that are determined purely based on the politics of the region and not the merits of the case?
It's already happening. I mean,
well, of course.
Yeah. And
so
I think it gets worse.
At the J6 level, we can see what happens. These guys. So let's stress this. There have been a few defendants who are acquitted because you can't charge someone with trespassing when they've been given no warning that they're trespassing.
That's like a handful, though.
It was like 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah.
One guy got convicted on some charges, but acquitted, had the other charges dropped because he wasn't trespassing, but he did do other things. One guy had a cop wave him in. And the judge said, yeah, that cop waved him in. So you can't charge him with trespassing. All charges dropped. However, the overwhelming majority of people, Democrats don't care. They don't care whether they knew they were trespassing or not. The law doesn't matter to them. They want you to burn. Yeah. So what's going to happen then when red states sue blue states? The Supreme Court says, not interested. There's not going to be a clean resolution. Donald Trump convicted in New York, and we know it's BS, and the Democrats cheer. Half the country knows those charges are false. Half the country doesn't care one way or the other. What's the resolution?
Yeah. Well, a perfect example is the recent Supreme Court 1512 decision, which all the J6 community was very excited about. The Supreme Court threw out the 1512 to say you couldn't use that to prosecute these people. And immediately, Matthew Graves, the next day, said, this is only going to affect 2 to 3%, and we're going to take 30 to 60 days to decide how we can change what we charge them with so that it fits in the Supreme Court decision. So they're never going to admit, even when the Supreme Court says they're wrong, they're never going to admit it. They're just going to try to find a way around it.
When Andrew Cuomo shut down churches in New York during COVID unconstitutionally, he was sued and he lost. Under the First Amendment, you cannot shut down a church. So what did he say? He took his executive order, crumpled it up, threw it in the garbage, and said, and now I'm going to make another one sign it, sue me over that. Throws it out. The Supreme Court, the federal courts, cannot answer these fast enough. And so these despots are saying, I can do whatever I want until the court tells me otherwise, and then I'll find a loophole. And that's exactly what's happening now. It took how long? Honest question. How long did it take for the Supreme Court to finally answer that question?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And now they're going to say, okay, let's do a different charge. 2 more years of waiting.
And this is an instance where the process is part of the punishment. So even if they don't get you in, put you in jail for, whatever, 10 years or whatever they're trying to do, the fact that you get picked up, that you have to go through this, you have to defend yourself. It's a nightmare.
All your money. Spend all your money.
It's true. I mean, there's a guy, he's in holding in Brooklyn. Do you know who this guy is? He's been locked up for 3 years, and they're putting him in solitary. He's not been charged yet. He hasn't faced trial. So when they're doing these things, there are people being held who haven't been charged yet. Okay, it's been 3+ years. It's remarkable to me that there's any person saying this country is not at risk of civil war. Mm-hmm. We are watching the federal government violate the Constitution straight to the faces of the Supreme Court justices who said, this charge is out, you can't do it. And they said with a straight face, we don't care what the highest court in this land thinks. We are going to wait before we drop the charges, and then we're going to find a different charge anyway. Mm-hmm. So the Supreme Court is powerless. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, maybe people on the right who keep denying that things are breaking apart in this country will recognize when the Supreme Court says it is so, and all of these states are increasingly saying we don't care, there is no Supreme Court anymore. No. There is no government when they deny your lawsuits, citing standing without merit. How about Pennsylvania? They ruled in the merits. The lower court said, actually, yeah, universal mail-in voting is a violation of the Constitution of Pennsylvania. And the higher court says, who cares? We pass it anyway. What happens? Where's the resolution to this? I genuinely don't know. My fear is we already have the Missouri lawsuit against New York citing election interference. We are going to get many, many more of these. The moment we see what Wisconsin just ruled, the ballot drop boxes are back. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Yeah.
So we're now going to see a ton of lawsuits. They're probably already being drafted. You're going to get one state suing Wisconsin saying you are breaking the rules. Only the state legislatures can make these changes. We are going to end up at November with a plethora of lawsuits to the Supreme Court. A lot of these are going to be already what we're seeing now with A.G. Bailey's lawsuit. It's on the emergency docket. So after we talked about it, some people were concerned they filed too late. No, they said it's original jurisdiction on the emergency docket. The Supreme Court will have to answer this very, very soon. Is New York interfering in the election? I got a feeling they're going to say, standing, we're not getting involved. We are going to see lawsuit after lawsuit at the state level, because in the first lawsuit, Texas v. Pennsylvania, I think you had 48 states involved filing amicus briefs on behalf of other states. And then we're not going to get a resolution to any of these questions because we didn't in 2020. What happens if Wisconsin or any one of these swing states with mixed leadership, a Democrat governor and a Republican legislature, the election has changed. The legislature, once again, like they did in 2020, says these electoral vote counts are incorrect because we did not vote on these changes to the election law. The governor says, don't know, don't care, I'm signing anyway. A Republican-controlled Congress is now at an impasse. You will be removed from Congress if you allow uncertified electors that are being disputed to count. That's going to be the vice president. So Kamala Harris is going to be counting this, but with Republican Congress, it may be different. What happens when Wisconsin submits electors the governor says are good and the legislature says are bad? Do they throw them out? Do they run them through? What happens if without the Supreme Court listening, they just say, we're going to say it's all through anyway, when Donald Trump is up several points? What happens if we don't get to 270 for either candidate because 4 or 5 states cannot solve their internal disputes over who's actually the electoral vote's going to? I have no idea. It may happen like 2020, where the lawsuits happen, the Supreme Court farts into their hands and then ignores the question. And then I don't see how the people in this country go through another period where there are legal challenges that go unanswered. The Supreme Court's refusal to answer Texas v. Pennsylvania has left a gigantic burn hole in the fabric of this country, and people are on edge. January 6th proved that. Mm-hmm. What happens in 2024 when you get the same thing times 10?
Mm-hmm. And what happens in 2024 if Trump actually does win? Do you really think they're going to allow him to take office?
Same thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be swing states. Let's say Trump wins Wisconsin. Governor's going to say, I won't certify. Mm-hmm. No, there were problems with our election.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
You got to save democracy.
Yep. If they're willing to file false charges against Trump, if they are willing to put his lawyers in prison, and Wisconsin is doing this, what makes anyone believe that in a close election in a swing state, the Democrat governor. I don't who's the Democrat. Wisconsin's the Democrat governor, right?
Yeah, is it Tony Evers, Wisconsin?
It might be. It's been a while. But what happens when this guy is just like, I'm not going to certify these electors because we've got election problems. Russia interfered.
Yeah.
So not submitting electors. Even if they know the end result is going to be a contingent election in the House where Republican delegations vote for Trump, maybe they don't even do it. Maybe you get some of these rhino Republicans who are like, I will not support Donald Trump. And then we're left in limbo with who's the president.
Well, so many of their congressmen are compromised, I mean, they can be manipulated, Republicans and Democrats.
They form some coalition and they decide we're going to compromise on who the president will be. And they make the argument that it shouldn't be Biden or Trump. And then they pick somebody else.
Hannah, you asked before about what was the biggest difference between Democrats back then and Democrats now. It's now they don't care about right and wrong. It's raw power now.
Yeah.
It's whatever they can get away with. That's what they're going to do.
It's interesting because when you talk about Joe Manchin, who just left being a Democrat, he's now an independent, it makes me think about there was a time when Democrats and Republicans wanted the same solution. They wanted the same end result. They wanted prosperous American people. They wanted them to have nice things, but how they wanted to go about it was very different. And so of course they were going to be in conflict. But now it seems as though, and probably not all of them, but generally someone who labels themselves a Democrat does not want the same thing as someone who considers themselves a Republican.
Let's jump to the story from SCNR. Despite Joe Biden's physical and mental failings, many people are still wondering, what is the shadow campaign? What is the angle that Democrats will try to employ to win? From SCNR, Biden administration opposes effort to verify citizenship during voter registration. The SAVE Act will safeguard our elections by ensuring only American citizens vote in federal elections, said Speaker Mike Johnson. As this story is by Hannah Claire Brimelow, I'll ask you, what's going on?
Well, okay. So the SAVE Act is a piece of legislation that's coming up. It should go to the floor for a vote this week. And it's an effort by definitely, I would say House Republicans and congressional Republicans overall to make it so if you're registering to vote, you have to present a form of citizenship. So it's twofold. If you're someone who works at like the DMV, before you give someone the forms to register to vote, you have to say, are you an American citizen? And they have to then provide proof of citizenship, a passport. It could be a military ID. There's a couple different things. But also as the person who is registering to vote, you have to then meet that burden of proof. You have to bring something to prove that you are a citizenship. So a couple other things like the Department of Homeland Security is allowed to then potentially start deportation processes for someone who has been found to have illegally registered to vote, a non-citizen, and things like that. But it's fascinating to me because Biden's response is, well, it's already illegal to vote as a non-citizen, so this is ridiculous, and you guys should vote on our bill. I mean, it's a complete get out of here swerve, and you're seeing, Speaker Mike Johnson was tweeting sort of a summary of the bill, and he's saying, we should protect our elections. We have seen unprecedented, Chip Roy of Texas talking about this too, we've seen unprecedented illegal immigration in this country. I mean, it's like over 10 million people who are in the country illegally, over almost 1 million people who have overstayed their tourist visas during 2022. We should make sure that people who want to vote are in fact American citizens. And this is offensive to Democrats in America. That's mind-blowing to me.
We've been warning, because of the Help America vote verification system, weird numbers, that something like this was at play. So when Republicans are like, hey, you got to be a citizen to vote, and Democrats go, no. I mean, yes, but no. It kind of makes you wonder, is it staring us in the face what their plan is? Now, Elon Musk has chimed in. He tweeted, he X-posted, when combined with mail-in ballots, the system is designed to make it impossible to prove fraud. Mail-in and drop-box ballots should not be allowed, as cameras on the in-person voting stations would at least prevent large-scale fraud by counting how many people showed up versus ballots cast. Dare I say, no mail-in ballots, no ballot boxes, in person only, with cameras counting how many people come and go.
I mean, that's only if you want a secure election, right? If you want it to be something that we trust, the process that we prove, then we would do something like that. But instead, if you want there to be gray area, so you could potentially abuse a loophole or, have a good sleight of hand like a true magician, then you wouldn't want these things. I mean, all of these efforts to secure the election, if the Biden administration is saying it's already illegal to vote as an illegal alien, then why would you not just let them pass this bill anyway? It's not hurting you. It's just reinforcing existing books on laws on the books. If you think that the elections are secure and someone is like, well, then why can't we have cameras there? Why would you question that? You can just let them have it.
Because they want fraud. I mean, if the Democrats came out and said, we don't want you to keep checking IDs for kids trying to buy beer, right? We want to outlaw that. What would you think they wanted? They wanted to make it legal or okay for underage people to buy beer.
Well,
or easier.
And that's how I feel about Pornhub, right?
Yeah.
So Pornhub is withdrawing from all these states, saying they're trying to abuse your privacy by requiring us to make sure the people who access this website are over 18.
Hey.
Well, I think maybe they just want children, minors, to have access to their site.
Exactly.
Take a look at this from the Social Security Administration. We've covered this story quite a bit over the past few months. This is the Help America Vote verification system. It is specific. When someone signs up to vote, if they register to vote but they do not have an ID, the form is submitted to the DMV, who submits it to the Social Security Administration to verify the person's Social Security number and name match. Now, for June 22nd, 2024, Pennsylvania had 90,980 individuals attempt to register to vote, but they did not have IDs. How does something like that happen? Well, of course, maybe there's an explanation. I don't know. The argument made is that it could be voter roll cleanup, that they're going through their voter rolls and trying and asking for these verifications to make sure these people are real. Now, unfortunately, that makes no sense. First, voter roll cleanup is not allowed for this. It specifically states on the SSA website, it is only when someone fills out a new registration and then submit that new registration. There is a possibility, I suppose, that they've allowed for this to happen. You want to clean up your voter rolls? Send in old registration applications. The question is, in this case, and we need answers, do the states retain registration forms after the person's already registered? Or does the registration form get shredded after their information is input into the voter roll? Meaning the documents showing you on the voter roll is different from your registration form. Excuse me. If they keep them, then they're submitting old forms to the SSA, possibility. If they don't keep them, I don't know what they are submitting, but here's where it gets important. Out of the 90,980 registration attempts with no ID, you want to pull this up, Kellen? You have 4,527 non-matches. So hold on a minute. Who are the 4,527 people who tried to register to vote with no ID who did not come up in the SSA website system? They don't have Social Security numbers? Okay, possibility. Some of them put their name or number in wrong. Okay, it's a possibility, but 4,527 people did not make that mistake. Now, hold on. 86,453 came back as matches with Social Security numbers, and you have 85 who are dead. So 85 dead people tried to register to vote. Look, there's explanations people always try to make, but you mean to tell me that in a 1 week period, Pennsylvania had nearly 100,000 people try to register with no ID, and 85 were dead? How does that happen? How does a dead person try to register to vote without an ID? How does a dead person try to register to vote?
Maybe they have help from someone. Maybe someone takes their ID there for them.
There's no argument that in 1 week, a guy went to register to vote, had a heart attack on the spot, and then the SSA got the reporting of his death before that application made it to their desk. None of this makes sense. And this has not been answered to yet. Now, Texas's number, you see it's way down. Earlier in the year, it was in the millions. Every other week, hundreds of thousands of people without IDs registering. Arizona, 47,928. Here's one for you. How did 11,374 people try to register to vote without an ID and have no match? So the Social Security number they provide with their name did not match any in the actual system. How is that happening? Maybe the federal government is giving voter cards or something, or they're doing something. I don't know.
Well, in their statement opposing the SAVE Act, the Biden administration said, this isn't going to stop people from illegally registering. In fact, it will make it harder for American citizens to register. So I just generally think they have an extremely low opinion of American citizens' IQ and abilities. I mean, you're telling me that someone who has to bring, I don't know, their driver's license to rent an apartment or do anything. They're subjected to all kinds of verifications of their age or status in other ways during regular course of life. Somehow, when registering to vote, that would be the most impossible time. I mean, if you're at the DMV and you have to bring, I don't know, your birth certificate, you're pretty much able to verify citizenship there. Shout out to birthright citizenship. I mean, if you're born in America, you're a citizen. So it's not that hard, and yet the Biden administration, the federal government stance right now is it's impossible. The Americans could never figure it out. And so that's why I think you can have systems like this where the numbers just don't look right, and the federal government ultimately feels as though you are too incompetent to question them, and that you will buy anything they tell you about any discrepancies in any sort of data they present.
Well, people who vote for Democrats, I have a pretty low opinion of them too.
I mean, but surely they also know how to, I don't know, use their driver's license, prove that they have residency somewhere. I mean, it's
of course.
It's so, I don't understand why this doesn't insult more people, but instead they're sort of like, well, we can't talk about what they're doing. The benevolent overlords in the Biden administration are going to protect me.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to hear people, parrot the same kind of remarks about it. It's like, oh, well, there's already a law against voting if you're not a citizen and stuff. And these same people would be like, oh, I want to have a whole bunch of gun laws. There's already laws against murder.
Yeah.
There's already laws against destruction of someone else's property, and they're very quick to jump on the bandwagon and be like, we need more laws. We need more laws. Why is this different? Especially considering the fact that it's clear that there has been an influx of 7 to 10 million people over the past 4 years. Certainly there's enough people that have come in illegally that would be inclined to try to vote to sway a district, sway a couple districts. Not that it would be, maybe there isn't enough people to go ahead and sway the whole country, but that doesn't really matter. All they have to have is enough people in the right places.
Right. It's the same logic that was campaigning against having a citizenship question on the census about, however many years ago. And it's like, but you'll scare people who are here illegally. Well, maybe that's okay because they're here illegally, right? Maybe we shouldn't be just incentivizing people to live in a way that is undocumented, partially because it's bad for our country, partially because it's bad for their own safety, right?
When have we in recent history or ever done citizenship verification on ballots? Have we gone through the ballots to verify citizenship?
Not that I remember. I don't know.
Well, we're not allowed to ask when we register them if they're citizens. So then if you get to the point where you get a ballot and get submitted, how would anybody check that? I mean, it's such an easy fix. And for whatever reason, and we all know the actual reason, they don't want to implement it.
It is laughable that Republicans think they will win anything without having this question be answered the whole time. This has been months. It was back in March we first reported these numbers, and they've not been answered. I think it was Missouri saying, clearly you're mistaken. This is not happening. No. I think Missouri said, it's voter roll cleanup. Texas said, clearly you are mistaken. We have not registered these. West Virginia said, we will not accept voter registrations from the federal government because Biden signed an executive order back in 2021 to create federal voter registration programs for states. And only a small handful of states said, F off with that. We won't accept that. I don't know how Republicans think they're going to win. Come November, mail-in votes, all of this garbage nonsense. Republicans think they're playing this game where they're like, this time we'll do mail-in ballots too, and then we'll win. And Democrats are going to come out another 5 million ahead, and they're going to say, guess the polls were wrong on this one. Republicans are going to say, how did this happen? Democrats are going to lie, cheat, and steal all over again, and it's staring you in the face, and no one. Do I have to call one of these members of Congress about, guys, are you not answering this? Yeah. Is this intentional? What's going on?
Well, the whole border situation, is that not intentional? I mean, it's been intentionally left open, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
why?
Biden intentionally revoked a bunch of the Trump era restrictions and enforcement as soon as he got into office, and then quietly put them back in place when, it wasn't working. I mean, I think you're right. How could it not be perceived as intentional, even as they start off by denying it's happening and then they blame Republicans for it?
And if it's intentional, what's the purpose of it? Why do that? Why do you want the border to be open?
I mean, why do you want a bunch of other people in a country that has a collapsing birth rate?
Right.
And whose populations could potentially shift the boundaries of Congress, even though you're not actually verifying that they're citizens? I mean,
but if they can't vote, I mean, if Biden says it's already illegal for them to vote, then what would be the purpose of allowing 11 million people to just come across the border?
I mean, the purpose would be to shift the census so that you can have more seats in the House. right? I mean, that's the problem.
That's one thing.
That's one thing. Do you have another one?
Yeah. Well, you want to let them vote.
Yeah.
You have to let them vote. The other thing is, I think these people are trying to tear the country apart. And I think they want dangerous people coming across the border.
Yeah.
Because I think that will help them. And I think that we're looking at probably a terrorist attack sometime between now and the election.
I mean, this is numbers that Border Patrol produces pretty regularly, that there actually have been a lot of people who have known ties to terrorism or who have some sort of risk factor who are coming across the border. And ultimately, the Biden administration's response is, stop talking about this. We don't want to talk about this anymore. Right. We're great and you guys are bad. And
you're racist for even thinking that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we also know that fentanyl is trafficked through the borders, and often that's related to China's intentions for our country. We also know that human trafficking occurs at the border. I mean, if Joe Biden didn't want to parrot Trump anyway, if he wanted to, he couldn't talk about the wall, politically damaging him in some way, fine. But you could still say, well, I'm going to be the anti-human trafficking president. And to do that, we have to close the border. And we're gonna talk about other ways to help people or whatever else, but this is really important. Instead, it's just like, stop talking about this. Mm-hmm. This isn't the message we like, and we don't want you to talk about it.
It's a right-wing talking point to speak up about human trafficking.
It's right-wing to say, hey, I think we should have a country that wants people to feel safe. It's a right-wing talking point to say Joe Biden couldn't even remember Laken Riley's name, even though she was dominating the news cycle because she had been murdered by an illegal immigrant who entered the country during Joe Biden's presidency and was known to law enforcement in multiple states. I mean, it's just kind of pathetic that these are real concerns for American, and Joe Biden's trying to tell you he can't look you in the eye. Karine Jean-Pierre looks reporters in the eye and says, no, this is wrong and your information isn't correct. But anyways, I think part of it too is that we have given up the idea that America actually could have a cohesive culture and a set of values because we have sort of embraced multiculturalism. It's like, oh, everyone should be able to live how they want over there separately and everyone brings something and that's fine. I don't care about that. I do care that ultimately we need a country that has something that people who come here who really want to be part of it can assimilate to. And it's strong enough where people can adopt the values and, promote them to their children.
Well, I just got to say, the boomers mostly did not give their values to their kids. That's it.
Yep. And
it's only getting worse today. There's that viral woman. I'm not going to get too much into who she is, but there's this viral TikToker who constantly has these posts that people are highlighting. Her dad's a Christian conservative, so is her mom. She grew up conservative, and now she's bragging on TikTok and building a following, being like, haha, now I'm a liberal. How did you lose your kid? What did or didn't you do? What values did you not give your kid? Why? That's the reality.
The boomers no, you go.
Well, it's the education system. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, a lot of these kids are being destroyed. They're having their brains destroyed. They're being turned against America, by the leftists that have infiltrated the educational system.
But that's level 2. Level 1 is parents left their kids to communists and never asked a question about it.
Yeah.
So you are correct in that these public schools are overwhelmingly embracing these neo-communist, neo-com ideals. But how do we get to the point where parents were like, okay, son, I'm going to work where you will not see me all day. You have no idea what I do for a living or how it works. You go hang out with those communists. Mm-hmm. How did we get to that point?
I mean, I think in part of that, you could argue there's an economic factor. The more America moved into being a system that said every parent has to have a job, there's no way to support a family without having 2 incomes, that was an influence. I also think part of it is feminism, the rise of like girl bossing and being like, you will lose your identity if you stay home with your children. As if raising a family is not a huge, is an honorable calling. I mean, you just started to rip the family apart. The reason no one is home to talk to kids about, hey, my teacher said this thing at school that I'm not sure about, is because we ultimately said, put your personal and professional ambitions above the idea that the family is the most basic atom of American society and grow from there.
The problem with feminism, I've been thinking about this a lot. One of the biggest problems with feminism is the way that men have responded to it. So the idea that women need to be able to do X, Y, and Z, men have responded by kind of saying, well, I guess I don't have to do things. Mm-hmm. And there's been an emasculization that's happened. And I think that one of the reasons why you see so many women trying to girl boss is because men have actually allowed themselves to lose their masculinity because they've been told that it's a bad thing so many times. They've been told in so many different ways that you being a masculine man is a bad thing. It's a negative, and you should be ashamed of yourself and you should feel bad. That's not true at all. You can be a man you can be a masculine man and be a leader of your family and still have a wife that goes to work or whatever she wants. That's fine. It doesn't mean that you're obligated to allow her to dictate how things go. It just means that, she's going to go and do her own thing, and that's fine. But the fact that men have backed away from being men because society has made them feel that they're somehow the bad guy for it. That's one of the biggest problems that's going on in our society is we have men that are afraid to be men. And there is actually incentive for men to be less masculine. The sneaky effer we talk about and stuff like that. The kind of guys that can sneak their way into positions to get access to sex.
But they're not even having kids.
Yeah.
What?
They're not even having kids.
No, that's true. But that's part of the problem with feminism. If you're a man and you can have lots of promiscuous sex, and this is what was sold to men, specifically men my age, and is that you can be a man and women are on the pill now, and you can have promiscuous sex, and that's a good thing, and that's what everyone should aspire to be, and that's totally wrong. You've got 200,000 years of evolution that have kind of directed us to where, given us a really good idea of what works best for most people. So the idea that just because the pill was created, that now we should just take and throw 200,000 years of evolution away and say we don't need that anymore. That is a foolish thing to do for your society and for your families, first of all, and for your society as a whole. The foundational unit, like you said, Hannah Claire, is the family. And we should have a government that supports the family and endorses the family and incentivizes making families.
Right.
The idea that we should center alternative lifestyles, that's the most absurd thing that I've ever heard. Especially now, if you look at the results and what's going on in society. Suicide is up, depression is up, men are checking out of society. There's all these terrible, terrible things that are happening. And there's no denying it. There's no argument about it. It used to be where people could say, "Oh, well, maybe not," or this, or you tend to get a lot of feminists that push back hard, and it's undeniable now. The stats.
Well, I read a report on the suicide stats, and overwhelmingly, the most prevalent group that was experiencing suicide rates were white men.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what federal agency had released it, but what they pointed out was actually there was a significant increase among Native American population that were committing suicide, and it was like a 3% jump. Not insignificant, but they were still like 20 points below white men.
Yeah.
And it was like, you can't even talk about the glaringly obvious. I mean, if you look at this, I'll have to find it later and maybe I'll post it to Twitter or something. But if you look at the chart, I mean, it was very obvious who was suffering in their respect. And I think to your point, what happens to boys who are told you can't grow up and become a traditional man? You either despair or you stay immature. And immature men then create another culture where women are like, well, I can't rely on men. I can't depend on them. So I have to be the one in charge and I have to do all these things. And it just perpetuates this cycle where people are both unhappy. Neither person is getting what they want out of the opposite gender, which is like someone who loves you, supports you, and helps you become the best version of yourself.
You know what's really funny too is a lot of people there's like the trope of the women in the kitchen and should be at home and the dad's out working. And that's only post-industrialization. Mm-hmm. If you go back to how humans lived 200 years ago, the man and the woman did work. Mm-hmm. The woman's churning butter. She's grabbing the eggs from the chicken coop. She's cleaning up some of the other animals and helping around the house. And the man is chopping the wood and doing the farm work and tending to the other animals and other crops. Like, people were all homesteading, and the man and the woman did work around the house the whole time. Now we have this idea of like women in the workplace, and what does it mean? It's like, well, yeah, the workplace is a post-industrialization thing. Mm-hmm. Men didn't leave their families for 8 hours a day, and industrialization, it was actually longer until the 8-hour workday. And women weren't just at home doing nothing, sitting around sipping wine with the neighbors.
No, I mean, we had these colleges that had schools of home economics, right? Where women would go to college to learn basically what are the best ways to manage households, how can you do all kinds of things, because it's like running a small business, right? You have to price all kinds of stuff. You have to manage all kinds of resources. I mean, it was so big that this was a department in the federal government, the Bureau of Home Economics. And eventually we're like, well, you're kind of part of the Department of Agriculture. And also we don't really want to talk about this. It's the same thing. Like my high school had home ec, which again is like learning how to manage your households. Men could benefit from that too. But they were like, it's not, we can't have that. That's very anti-feminist. So it became like food science. And then
food science.
I mean, it was a good class. It was fun, but like it was like we gave this up for no reason. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I'm so old that, in my high school, we had home ec and we had shop class and we had auto mechanics. It's like people learning to do things, do work that they needed to do in order for the household to function.
Otherwise, you have to outsource all of these things,
Yeah.
or you're dependent on all kinds of things. Like one of the things I remember reading about the Bureau of Home Economics was people like courses on appliances and stuff that you could use to make your home more efficient or better or whatever else. And like now it's like whatever commercial happens to convince you, whatever influencer sells you a product, you're more susceptible to, because it's more difficult to do the research. I mean, we don't treat the American home as something that is worth preserving, and I think that's sad. But at one point, our culture did. We recognize that it's not just like anyone who stays home is doing nothing. It's actually, again, managing essentially a small business.
We're going to go to Super Chats. Do you have one more point?
One last thing before, going back to how did families abdicate their responsibility to their children and let them hang out with communists all day? I mean, I think that they didn't see it coming. You don't want to believe that. I've found that going with the movies, the movies that I've made about January 6th, people don't want to believe what I'm telling them. You don't want to believe that your government is this evil.
Yep.
And so you just don't see it coming.
And people don't want to believe that Joe Biden pooped his pants.
That's right. Except Whoopi, who thinks it's okay.
That's right. All right, we're going to do a Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends if you really do enjoy it. Head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work, because the only way we do the show is because you guys are members. That basically funds the operation. We really do appreciate it. As a member, you'll get access to the uncensored call-in show, where you as a member can submit a question. Everybody else votes on it. If it's good, you're calling in, joining the show, and talking to us and our guests. You don't want to miss it. That'll be in about a half an hour over at timcast.com. But for now, we will read your Super Chats. The Authentic Hydro PX says, man, the stay alive Joe Biden, all we need is your corporeal form, quote, aged well for the right. My, how the tables have turned. Also, howdy, people.
Howdy.
Howdy. Grant Arnett says, daily reminder that if Fetterman can win, so can Biden.
Fetterman was campaigning with Biden this over the weekend. Did you see that?
Oh, dude, if the ticket was Fetterman Biden, I'd actually be excited.
I wouldn't mind that.
Fetterman being the president and Joe Biden being vice president.
Yeah, right. It'd just be like so wild. I'd be like, I'm almost interested to see what happens if they win.
Well, that's why I almost am sad that I really don't think Joe Biden's going to resign. I know there's a rumor about it. I think he's going to stay on the ticket. But seeing an open convention for the DNC and having people have to lobby on the floor to get delegates would be fascinating.
That'd be fun.
Especially since it would have to go at such a rapid pace. Their convention's mid-August. I mean, anyone who would like to take that opportunity would have 4-6 weeks to make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha Turkey says, anyone thought in depth what happens post-election? Oh, if you guys thought January 6th was crazy,
Yeah.
wait till you see January 7th.
I mean,
It's going to be crazy.
the idea that, if you look at what's going on in France when the left won, if Donald Trump wins, there's going to be significant violence from the left here in the U.S. And hopefully...
Oh, Summer of Love would be a joke.
Hopefully municipalities around the country will actually have the courage to stomp the crap out of them because if they're breaking the law, to bring them, arrest people, throw them in jail, throw the book at them, actually prosecute them. Make sure that there are real consequences for smashing up, people's property and stuff. I don't think that there's a lot of, I don't have a lot of faith in most municipalities to do this. The places that they will riot the most are the places that are already kowtowed to the left as it is. But that's really the only way you're going to actually prevent this in the future is to actually have consequences for people that do destroy property and stuff like that.
All right. Common Criminal says, can we please not get pumpkin spice coffee in the coffee club packs in the summer? Well, the Mr. Bokus pumpkin spice experience is over. And all that's left is once it's gone forever. And so that's it. And then I don't know what the coffee club packs will end up being. We want it to rotate, but we're building it all up. I do recommend, everyone's really shouting out Ian's Graphene Dream low acidity coffee. They're saying it's really good. So shout out for Ian's idea. He said, we got to have low acidity. And Allison figured out the low acidity coffee is made a blend, and everyone's really enjoying it. All right, we'll grab some more super chats. Brian Almeida says, my mother had Parkinson's. Biden displays many of the same visible symptoms of the disease. Also, the dementia that can be a side effect of Parkinson's. Sadly, my mother passed away from the disease, and I feel so will he soon.
Does it make it worse that so many reports are saying it's Hunter and Jill that are trying to encourage Biden to stay in the race? Like, if they're, I mean, we don't know for sure. It is speculation, but if he does have some kind of degenerative neurological issue and they know that, they know their time with him is limited, they're like, so you should stay the president.
Well, you know what's really funny to me is I always thought it was funny when they have like extra virgin olive oil. You know what I mean? Because like when you buy olive oil, it's usually some crappy dilution of like the withered husk of the olive that they just smash, take it as little bit out as they can. And then they add like canola oil and call it olive oil. That's how I feel they're treating Joe Biden. Like the extra virgin, that was decades ago. And now they've got this withered husk that they found on the floor in the corner that they've put in the expeller. And they're just cranking it as hard as they can, but nothing's coming out. You're not going to get any more.
Well, they're trying to stay out of jail.
That's right. Yep. All right, we'll read some more. Anthony Shaw says, make Democrats sob again. The chat wouldn't let me add the year after this that corresponds to our next election. Hope you all had a good Independence Day weekend. It was a hoot. I had a lot of fun. Cameron Keir says, we'll know they want Joe gone if they leak the her tapes. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go. D-Claw says, hey, Phil, can't wait to see you at the Destroy All Enemies tour in Concord. Is it California? And thanks, Tim and cast, for all you do, putting on amazing shows.
Yeah, we're all about to go on tour with Phil. Are you ready, Nick? Do you have your drum kit?
I'm ready to go. I can sing Sandman.
Enter Sandman or?
Sandman.
Enter Sandman, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I thought you were saying, I thought you were going to Mr. Sandman, give me a
No,
dream.
I can sing that too, but
That's
cool.
Enter
Like that
Sandman's more fun.
Phil, are you going to miss us when you're on tour?
Everyone except for you.
Well, interesting. Well, because I'll be there, right? Because
Exactly,
we're on
yeah.
tour together.
Oh, okay, smooth. Let's go. Willie Bryce says, one of two. A family friend suffered a severe loss due to domestic violence on the 5th. If you could read this, the help from you or anyone listening would be greatly appreciated. Where's the other post?
Sorry to hear.
Sorry to hear, but I don't see the other post. So best of luck. Best of luck. All right. What is that? Matthew Hammond says, I recently watched Muzzle. How was it to work with Aaron Eckhart and the Good German Shepherd?
I didn't meet the dog, but Aaron Eckhart was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he seems
Really
cool.
great guy.
Seems
Yeah,
like
we
a nice
shot
guy.
that in Kentucky too.
I thought he did a great job in The Dark Knight, one of my favorite movies. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, he's a terrific actor, very well prepared. I had a good time with him.
It really is wild. I mean, I think a lot of people take for granted good acting because for me, I grew up in an era where you get access to all the good acting. Nowadays with Amazon, they put anything in their new releases. And I feel bad for some of these people. And I'm like, wow, they are not good. And I feel really bad for the ones that are. Because like I'm watching some movie last night, it's a new release on Amazon. And I can't stand it. The graphics, like the cover, everything looks really, really high end. And then there won't be a trailer. And that's always a red flag. So I try to avoid them. But then you watch some of these trailers and it's like lighting is bad. Audio is bad. Editing was bad. And it always pains me a little bit when the movie has a really good actor in it, but the directing is so awful that they're a good actor, but like you can't.
Yeah.
Oof, it's rough.
No, it is rough out there. But there's a great movie out right now called Thelma that's in theaters right now that's just great acting. Full disclosure, it's my son-in-law's movie.
Okay, I was going to ask if you were in it or something.
I'm not in it. This is the rare moment I'll endorse a movie I'm not in. It's my son-in-law's movie. It's called Thelma.
I just saw A Quiet Place Day 1. I liked it substantially more than all of the others because it was an actual movie. Like the other ones, it's just don't make a sound, and like I can't I can't do it. Where it's just like there's no dialogue, nothing happening.
Right.
This one actually has a lot of dialogue, even when they're trying to avoid the aliens. They're whispering, and there's a lot of quiet parts. I just can't watch a movie where there's no talking, and that was like the first and second one. I just like not interested. But also this one is a story. People are hanging out in New York. Aliens smash into the planet and start just massacring people. And you watch the beginning, and it ends with them like escaping to water. I'd prefer to watch a movie with like an ending, but it was all right.
Have you seen Apocalypto?
Oh yeah.
That's a great movie with very little dialogue.
Yeah, but that's so
Well, they talk,
different.
I guess. You just can't understand it.
Right.
It's all subtitles.
Dude, that movie is brutal.
That's so great. It's
Yeah.
such a great movie.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah, that's a classic. Although I will say the best movie ever is The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson. America.
Very great.
Everyone.
Watch that this weekend.
Yeah, that's like the movie to watch on the 4th of July.
Well, it's MAGA month, so we
Well,
can continue.
I'm trying to remake The Patriot. It's a different story, but I'm developing a movie about the Battle of Kings Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, aim small, miss small.
Yep. I mean, dude, Mel Gibson nailed it in that movie. Benjamin something, I can't remember what his name was. It's an amalgam of a few different historical figures that they put their stories together. But he personified this, like the reluctant warrior so well.
Oh, yeah.
And the revenge and retribution for the killing of his sons, plural. Mm-hmm. Man.
How do you develop scripts sort of based on historical events? Like, are you reading memoirs? Are you relying on something else?
I was approached to do this by a man who had the rights to a novel about the Battle of Kings Mountain, and I enlisted a friend of mine who's a brilliant screenwriter named Charles Carner, and we talked about it, and we tried to bring in personal elements that would make the overarching story a little bit more cinematic, and we just sort of, you make it up with the facts. If that makes any sense. You have surrounding facts, and then you make up stuff to make the story work within that.
Because if it's a completely fictional movie, the characters are however you make them, however you envision them. But if they're real people, I assume you have to go back and see, well, what did these people say and what were they like, and how do I portray them accurately?
And then you fudge it a little bit here and there where you need to, to make the story work.
This is an interesting one. Lone Wolf Annie says, haven't heard much about how fundraiser held for Brandon after debate was hosted in part by Michael J. Fox and his wife. I read Michael didn't attend, but he's one of the most famous people afflicted with Parkinson's. Is that true?
Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's.
No. Is it true that he held a fundraiser for Biden?
Yeah.
Let me look.
On Martha's Vineyard, yeah.
Really?
Right after the debate.
That's
But
interesting.
it was pre-scheduled. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, for 8 months, a Parkinson's doctor's meeting at the White House and then Michael J. Fox. I mean, it's a grain of sand. It's not a large piece of evidence, but it is interesting.
I think it's more interesting that there are so many people starting to say, I'm going to withhold donations if you don't
Abigail
hold him."
Disney.
Right. And one of the Netflix guys, one of the founders of Netflix said the same thing. I mean,
Reed Hastings, I think. Yeah.
it is interesting that there is one of the things I think I've seen people be critical of the Biden campaign so far is that Obama had all this charm and all these celebrities loved him, and it seems like Biden's not able to capture sort of that Hollywood celebrity momentum. But maybe it's more quiet. I mean, if you're right, like someone who has Parkinson's says, "I'm going to support another person with Parkinson's," or if it's people saying, "Well, I was obligatory, I was going to give because you're a Democrat, but now I won't because you're so bad." I mean, it is interesting that they cannot capture the star power.
Mm-hmm.
Rock Braz says, yesterday I turned 45. Can I get a shout out as a longtime listener and Timcast member? Love you guys. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy
Is it Rock?
birthday.
Is that how you pronounce it? Happy birthday. You're 45.
Happy birthday, youngin'.
You are a middle-aged man.
You got a
youngin'.
long way to go. Long way to go.
He's halfway there.
Kids.
Halfway. Actually, more than halfway. 79. So just over the hill, as they say. I mentioned that I was halfway there once, and a bunch of people were like, "No, you're not. You're 38. You're young." And I'm like, life expectancy is 79.
Let's not talk about this. I'm 65. Come on, move on.
But I just found out my family all lives to like their late 90s, so I'll probably be here forever. Unfortunately,
Have IRL on your 91st birthday.
yeah. Someone asked me, family member, how long do I plan on doing this? And I was like, well, I imagine at some point the medium will have evolved so much podcasts won't exist, and that'll be it. And like all my audience will be old or dead. So people will be in like some weird gyroscopic Neuralink chamber spinning around, like experiencing a whole life of watching some show or something.
Or like a move to holographic projections that appear in your living room.
No, Neuralink.
No.
They're gonna plug
Not
into
for
their
me,
brain
but
and their
thank
eyes are gonna
you.
turn white and they're gonna slump over and they're gonna be sitting there at the desk with the show,
Yeah.
hanging out as everyone talks about it.
Wow.
All right, let's go. Garant says Joe disqualified himself from being president, let alone considered human, when he checked his watch repeatedly for 13 Marine coffins on the tarmac from Afghanistan who died due to Joe's call. And he further disqualified himself when he lied and said no one lost their life. Joe, you were there at the transfer and you're checking your watch. What a scumbag. Matthew Bruner says, Tim, look up Lewy body dementia. One of the first symptoms is hallucinations and body movement problems. Explains shaking hands with no one and other behaviors. We've seen those videos where Biden walks the wrong way and then reaches his hand out and everyone's like, what are you doing? But I think that the worrying thing is when you see him hunched over and his hands are like this. He does the cornholio thing with his hands out and his fingers are like clenched in a weird way. That right away, I was like, that's okay. You guys have ever seen, have you ever seen someone get hit in the head hard?
Yeah.
And you see how their body goes rigid and their hands tense up and they're just shaking? That's because of a neurological problem, right? They're seizing. Joe Biden walking around with his hands like this is indicative of a problem. The cornholio is one thing when his hands are like this at his side, but then when he puts his hands out and they're clawed in like a weird way, I'm like, yo, come on, he's 81. What do you expect? All right, what we have next? Jason Hutchinson says, none of this is good, whether he has old age and can't control his bowels or it's Parkinson's or something. Yeah. And he's not going to back down. He is the duly elected nominee for the Democratic Party. So
Go, Joe. Keep running, man. Keep running.
Well, the problem is y'all are saying that. And then there's a shadow campaign. Biden wins. And then a week in, whoops. And then you get Kamala or whoever.
Absolutely. That's the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole reason Biden is there is they thought he would be believable, that people could believe he won.
Yeah.
So that's the same reason now that he'll stay. I mean, if they put in Kamala Harris, even if they steal it, is it really going to be believable that a majority of America voted for her? No, it's not. Nobody would buy it.
So long as we're on month 4 of the Help America Vote Verification System reporting and no one in Congress has done anything, I guess I just need to send a text message to somebody or something. Like, actually, we are hoping to have A.G. Bailey on. I should definitely ask him about what Missouri is doing about this, and we can show them the numbers that Missouri's registered right now. 17,096 people have tried to register without IDs. 1,889 didn't match. How many of those could really be people writing on their Social Security numbers wrong? Maybe, but 167 were dead. Okay, they came back as a match in the system, but they're dead. I'm sorry, I need an answer for that.
Yeah.
That does not seem right.
We have a member of Congress coming on soon. I don't want to say exactly when, but it is soon. So we'll have an opportunity to ask somebody.
If you'd like to find out who it is, become a member at timcast.com and watch the members only show. The main reason we don't like to announce our guests is because if they cancel, people get disappointed. So we usually don't. Because we've had way too many instances where we're like, we got a big show coming up this week, and then they cancel because like something happened, and then it's like, yeah, okay, we promoted nothing.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Timothy Bonds says, I'm 44 and I've had 3 strokes since 2013. 2 on December 3rd, 2013, and the 3rd last week. I'm nowhere near as bad as Biden. I even posted a clip of myself doing drills on Phil's X page. Oh, man, sorry to hear it. Hope everything works out, though. Barely a Millennial says, can you imagine Biden trying to cross the Delaware or pen a declaration or convince the French to give more money? Thank God we have a strong foundation. I think the Spanish helped us in the American Revolution, too, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah. But like the French intervention was much larger. So people don't give the Spanish enough.
If I understand correctly, the French mostly helped with naval power.
Was that it?
That's what I believe. So I'm not any kind of scholar or anything. So
I thought you were going to open up the tour every show with a lecture on the American Revolutionary history. I wish you guys could see Phil's face right now. He hates me so much.
They can see Phil's face.
Oh, yeah. It's okay, Phil. I'm not going on tour with you, and you know it.
All right. Daniel Welch says, Sean Ryan interviewed Tyler Vargas Andrews, Marine injured in Afghanistan withdrawal, said Biden tried to shake his non-existent blown-off right arm. Jeez. Mm-hmm. Dude.
Well, he didn't want to be accused of ableism, right? He tried to just, offer it.
He's just imagining his hand.
No, I mean, I think Joe Biden is... I mean, maybe one of the issues is he is in some sort of decline, and also he really is a seasoned politician. So he just kind of knows in some sort of muscle memory, oh, when I'm on stage, I'm kind of supposed to behave like this, but he doesn't have the wherewithal to really pull that off anymore. He knows...
Kind of like my acting.
I feel like you're being insulting to yourself.
Let's go. Derek Curtis says, things are going poorly for old Joe when he loses the endorsement of Meathead, Rob Reiner. Reiner? Who's that?
Rob Reiner.
Oh, okay. He put Reiner. Oh, but really, Rob Reiner said no?
Yeah, he said that he should drop out.
Wow.
I don't know how.
When you've lost Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
Again, I think the Parkinson's thing may be media taint. Because if this guy met at the White House several times for other presidents, it's not a big deal. And they're trying to make it seem like it's worse than it is. New York Times highlighted Parkinson's. He's just a neurologist. It's like, I don't trust these people. They're coming after poor old Joe. And we here are riding with Biden, so you better watch out, you guys.
Well, don't be
Biden.
disrespectful to Biden, who's giving us a very authentic, a very, interesting presidential campaign. I mean, we're talking about him, and that's good for him.
Look at this man, Joe Biden, who is sacrificing so much right now, suffering potential illness, but he's, helping America, even though he's sick.
He stopped corn pop. We have to remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
But,
Endlessly entertaining.
Trump is healthy and spry. What sacrifice has he made for America?
Well,
Joe Biden, he is fighting for us even though he's unwell.
There's no age cap on the
dignity.
presidency, and these are the only 4 years left that he has to give us. I mean, we could elect Trump later. He's healthy. He's young.
Yeah.
This is if we wanted Joe Biden presidency, it's sort of now or never.
This is our chance.
You know what I saw on that debate stage? I saw Donald Trump a bully, making fun of this poor old man who is suffering from a cold.
Yeah.
And from so much that he's sacrificing for us.
And ridiculing his golf game.
Yeah.
Oh, how could he?
Dare he?
We all know Biden's handicap was probably a 4, but he was just being polite.
Well, this is,
hard
our
to
modern slapping with the glove, right? To go after a man's golf game.
I just can't believe.
Some circles, that really is just like a punch him in the face.
You take the opportunity to watch the clip when Biden says 6, see how Trump responds.
It's the funniest part.
Hilarious. He's like, he's so taken aback. Like, how dare you?
It's the moment he has the most shock, which is sort of hilarious. Which also means that he went in knowing that Biden wasn't going to be in bad shape, and that didn't ruffle him. It's the golf.
I got to be honest, though. He said the biggest lie of the night. I really do bet there's a lot of people who watch golf they're sitting at home going like, okay, now I know that's not true. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to lead with. When I see family and they're like, yeah, well, Trump was lying. I'm like, you really think Biden was a 6 handicap?
That's
Come
right.
on.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I mean.
And Trump was like, I've seen your swing, pal. You're not a 6.
It's funny because that's like, Biden says, I did this, I did that. And it's like, you got to prove that to somebody and the media's lying. But you take one look at Biden and you're like, come on. You think he was telling the truth there? And like, well, no, but you can't say that you think that was a lie, but other things are true. Like, do you think he's honest or not? He lied about that. I don't care what Trump thinks his handicap is, but that was funny. All right. Cold Slime says it's time for everyone to realize the Democrats are just acting out an Adam Sandler movie. Right now, they're in Billy Madison. All the cool kids poop their pants. They tried Happy Gilmore during the debate, arguing handicap. Yeah. Laszlo Puente says, possible attack on the water infrastructure in Wayne County, Michigan. Do not drink the water. Alerts posted. Whoa, really? Yeah. All right. Devin Brown says, big fan, Tim. Don't always agree, but you at least see reality. I worry with all these illegals that look like military that they will attack on a really important day, like on November 5th. Remember, the 5th of November. Heck of a day for an election here in the United States. It's a British thing, but What year was that, 1600s, when Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament?
I don't know. Let me see.
Don't want to look that up. The gunpowder treason. The gunpowder plot, I think that's what it's called, right?
1605.
1605. Amazing. He wanted a Christian theocracy, so he wanted to do away with Parliament. Yeah. I don't know why the left supports that guy and cheers for him, but, whatever.
So it's like Project 2025, right?
I love how they've just decided that's the thing to go after, and Trump's like, I don't know what that is.
They've been trying this for so long. Every couple of months, it'll be like, Project 2025. And it's just pathetic. They have nothing to really go after at this point. So again, it's just trying to get everyone as scared as possible so they'll comply. If you're a Democrat, is this inspiring you? Like, everything is about, you should be scared of their side. It's not, here's how we're going to make your life better.
The Democrats' entire platform is, you should be afraid of the Republicans, and we'll pay you if you vote for us. They clearly have made that their their platform. Kamala Harris was just talking about it today. We after the Supreme Court said no, we still managed to forgive billions of dollars in student loan, et cetera, et cetera. That's part of the reason why the inflation is so bad.
Okay, so Republicans, you ever see that commercial where it's the two guys on each side of the street and they have hot dog stands? And the one guy says hot dog $2. The other guy looks over and then he writes hot dog $1. And the other guy is like 2 hot dogs for $1. The other guy was like 3 hot dogs for $1, and they're competing. And then finally one guy writes 50 hot dogs $1 and he smirks. And then the other hot dog stand guy walks over and hands him the $1 for all of his hot dogs. This is the game Republicans got to play. Trump should come out right now and say, if you vote for me, I'm going to write each of you a check for $100. I'm a billionaire. I can do it. And then when they're like, that's illegal, you can't do that, he'll be like, Biden paid off their student loans. So not literally offer the money, but he should play that game where Republicans should say, vote for us and we'll cancel your credit card debt. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be like, you can't do that. And he'll be like, yeah, Biden did it.
Yeah.
And then Biden's going to be like, well, we'll cancel your mortgages. And then Trump will be like, we will not only cancel your mortgage, but we will grant you a house.
Everybody gets a house.
And
Everybody
your
gets
car
one.
payments.
Car payments done. We'll reset the debt to zero. We'll give you all this stuff, whatever, because clearly the Supreme Court said Biden can't do it. He did it anyway. I really do want to point this out, though. Like, the Supreme Court is effectively nothing. These rulings are meaningless.
Yeah.
They said no forgiving debt. He went, I'll do it anyway. They said you can't charge people on the J6 obstruction thing. We're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court has proven they can answer no questions.
Well, if the left don't think laws apply to them.
All right. One last super chat. We got Peyton Walter says, I'm a neurosurgeon. He's got rigidity, a festinating gait. Is that what that is? And masked faces. Am I saying this wrong? You can't detect a pill rolling tremor, but you can do the math. I don't know what those things are, but I will take your word for it, person on the internet. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, the members only show with call-ins from you, our members, will be happening in about a minute or so. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Share the show with your friends if you really do like it. Nick, do you want to shout anything out?
Shout out, everybody go to Amazon, buy my book. It's hilarious. And go.
What's the book called?
Called Justify This, A Career Without Compromise. And there's great stuff in it, and that's my movie, warontruthmovie.com.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is called All That Remains. We are going on tour this summer with Megadeth and Mudvayne on the Destroy All Enemies tour. It starts, I believe, August 2nd, and it goes until September 29th. You can check out our new video for a song called Let You Go. You can see it on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, Deezer, the internet. And don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
It's been so fun having you. It's been great to be back with all of you on this Monday. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. Follow all of our work at Timcast News on the internet. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. I'm on Twitter at hannahclaireb. If you're in Texas and being hit by this hurricane, I hope you're okay and I hope you're safe. Bye, Kellen.
See you later, Hannah Claire. If you guys want to learn about the paradox of right-wing e-girls, go over to Tenet Media and check out the latest Culture War episode that just aired last Friday. Other than that, you can follow me at Kellen PDL everywhere. Thanks, guys.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.